Hi, and welcome to About Our Hope, where we talk about God, Jesus, and why we do what we do in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am your host, Callie Baker, and I am so happy that you are here. Welcome to the first ever interview. This is going to be so fun. I am so excited about it. Today, I am going to be interviewing my husband, Austin Baker, which is so fun. And I just want to first start by giving a little bit of an intro on why I want to do interviews in the first place. Part of what I'm hoping to do with these interviews is to show you that there's not just like one way to be a member of the church. It's not just like, it doesn't have to be this cookie cutter story. You don't have to have this cookie cutter life, but there are so many amazing examples out there, and that is what I'm hoping to share with you. So who better to start with than my husband? And you might think that this is like an obvious first choice, and yes, but I want to interview my husband, and not just because he is my husband, but because he is an amazing person. He is an amazing example of following Christ. He has been that way since the day that I met him. And he has an amazing story, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on today is his conversion story. And maybe some fun other questions thrown in there. But I'm excited for you to get to know him. And probably while you're listening to this, you're going to be like, he should be the one who has a podcast. And if you think that, you're right. And so many of the things that I say in my like other podcasts come from conversations with him. He has so much wisdom, so smart, so much knowledge. So I'm really excited, and let's get into it. That was a long intro.
That was such a nice intro. Thank you. I didn't know what to expect from the intro, but that was so nice. Thank you.
Yeah, we really didn't talk about this before at all. I was like, I just want to have a conversation. So I'm not going to prep you or anything. And so what I just kind of want to do, like I said, is your conversion story. Mm-hmm. So wherever you feel like you want to start with that, could be growing up, could be high school. Where do you?
Yeah. So I think for me, my conversion story is always evolving, always changing. And I felt like throughout my whole life, there have been different parts of my testimony that are grown and evolve and change over time. I feel like when I was a kid, I never had a problem with church. I liked church. My family grew up in Las Vegas. And so I feel like right off the bat, I was in a position to kind of be an outlier wherever I was growing up. So I kind of came to a testimony of my own pretty quickly. I remember when I was like 8 or 9 years old playing baseball with a bunch of kids down in Vegas. Everyone knew that I was a little different. They didn't know what it was. And I just like loved telling people like, I'm a Mormon. Like I thought it was so cool that a lot of them had no idea what that was. Or if they knew what it was, maybe they were some sort of other Christian denomination. And I would get into like little not arguments, but I enjoyed conversations about the church, even from the time I was a young kid. Like I remember very specifically once when I was talking to this kid on my baseball team when I was like 9 years old, and we were arguing modalism. And I had no idea what it was when I was a kid, but I was like, you have to make this make sense to me. And he thought it was fun. And
you should just say what modalism is.
So it was my understanding. So one of the things that I knew was, as a member of this church, we did not believe in just the typical Trinity philosophy that other religions and Christian denominations believe in. And I just thought that was so cool. So whenever we would read the scriptures as a family, and my dad would always bring up these kind of conversations. So he would say, this is what other Christian denominations believe, and his understanding of it. Okay, so this is not their belief about the Trinity, but as a kid, I thought that they believed in modalism, which is essentially God is the Father, and then when he wants to become the Son, he becomes the Son, and then when he wants to become the Spirit, he becomes the Spirit. So he's changing modes based on the circumstances. Mm-hmm. So for example, when Christ gets baptized and the voice of God comes down, I would ask this kid, like, so why would Christ throw his own voice up in the air?
9 years old.
And the kid loved it too, because he was similar. He liked a good little back and forth. So anyways, all of that to say, even when I was a kid, I really enjoyed these bigger conversations. But my conversion story and my testimony has changed so much over time. I feel like even now, there's been parts of my life where I feel like I know everything. And then you quickly realize, like, no, I don't know anything. And so it's this constantly evolving and changing testimony.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's like we talk about this all the time. I can't remember. You'll remember the name for it. The more you learn about something, the more you realize. Yeah,
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah. So basically what that effect is when you don't know a lot about something, you think that you know a lot about it. But then the more that you look into it, the more you realize that you don't know, like how much you don't know. So like a good example, Austin loves chess. Mm-hmm. One of his fun qualities. And chess is a good example of that. Like when people who don't know a lot about chess but have won a few games will think that they know a lot. But then once you start learning about chess, you realize how much you don't know.
That's a great example. And now I just know for a fact that I actually don't know that much about chess.
Right. And Austin's actually really good at chess for anyone who knows chess out there. But anyway, so it's just so true that as we go throughout life, we can go through phases where I know that I've done this a million times too, where you feel like you know a lot. And then the older you get, you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah. So if I had to break down my conversion, I would just say it's kind of happened in big sections. So there was my childhood, and that was its own thing. And then my teenage years, which were its own roller coaster. And then the mission, and then post-mission. So that's kind of how I break down my own levels of my conversion. And it feels like it just keeps getting cooler and cooler. Like the older I get, the more I learn, the more I love learning and realize there's so much more to learn. And that's what makes it so fun. One of my favorite principles of the gospel is eternal progression. Like that is just such an awesome belief that we have, that the point of this life is to learn and to progress, and that we do that for eternity. And so I think that's where my testimony and my conversion really comes from, is every experience that I've ever had, the ups, the downs, everything has brought me to where I am currently. And I just love the gospel and learning about it and studying it. And
totally. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, so you shared a little bit about your childhood. I feel like that was a great story to kind of illustrate what I feel like, at least from what you've told me about your childhood. So, okay, moving on, maybe when you moved to Utah or whatever you think is kind of next.
Yeah. So it was interesting because growing up in Las Vegas, I loved being the Mormon kid that did things differently than everybody else. Like I enjoyed that. Some people have a struggle with that. Like I liked that it was like, oh, you don't swear, you don't. And I kind of took maybe some pride in that I loved living my beliefs. And then when I was 14, my family moved to Utah, and then it was just totally different. Now I was just it felt like everybody was a member of the church. And so that was an interesting experience. And I didn't really have that excuse anymore of like, oh, I don't do these certain things because I'm Mormon, because everybody was Mormon at the time, it felt like.
And some people who were Mormon still did those things.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't like...
It was not a valid excuse. Anymore, yeah. And so, it was an interesting experience. High school was very interesting for me. I don't really talk about it a ton, but I took probably a couple years off from church. My heart was not in it. I wanted to do other things. I was just a teenage boy, and it took a couple of years off.
Yeah.
And that was it was a hard time. It was a crazy time. There was so much going on in that time period, but I feel like what it was for me is I was searching for my independence, and I did not want to be just whatever my parents wanted me to be at the time. But I still had that same inner personality that I had when I was a kid. So I wanted to know the answers to these big questions because they didn't go away. So I started looking into other religions and took a world religion class and just tried to read other books. I mean, as much as I was reading as a 17-year-old, but mostly just looking into other things. Like, okay, what is out there? There's the lifestyle that I was living with my friends at the time, which was a lot of fun. It was just basically whatever we want to do, we're going to do it. We don't care about consequences. We don't care about any of that. We're just going to do it. And that did not seem like a very fulfilling long-term strategy. I looked into like Buddhism, which I thought was interesting. And just started to look around and like see what was out there. I had a period of time where I was maybe upset. Maybe just upset in general. And I didn't know for sure if God existed or not. So I had to live with that for a while and kind of wrestle with those questions. But then when it came down to it, I really wanted to know if God was real, if this church was true. And so after a couple of years of just doing everything out there, I was like, okay, I could clearly see two paths before me. There was the path of just continuing that do whatever I want lifestyle, and I felt like I had a clear vision of where that was going to lead me. Or there was this other path, which was pray, ask God, and figure out if there is an alternative. And with all the sincerity that I had, I prayed one day and was like, Heavenly Father, I think you're there. If you are, I will commit to you and I will do this church thing as best as I can. And I had like the most incredible experience that day. And so even like as an 18-year-old that hadn't been doing the best choices leading up to this, I felt the love of God and I knew that he was there. And I'd committed already, like, okay, if I get that feeling, I'd already done all of this study, I've already poured myself into this. If I get that feeling, I'm going to commit to it. And so as soon as I had that experience, I reached out to the bishop and said, hey, I'm 18, I want to go on a mission. And I know a lot of people might have bad experience. You know, you hear these things like, oh yeah, like my bishop, this or that. And I had the most incredible bishop. Because I had a lot of things that I was like, these are all heavy on me and I need to talk to you and give you this. And I'm just going to do the best I can. And just the most incredible experience with the bishop. We talked for a long time. And when it was over, he just said, I just want you to know how much God loves you, no matter what. He's like, can I give you a hug? And I was like, absolutely. Gave him a big hug. And I just felt this love that was like unlike anything that I had ever felt. And so for me, that's where this whole commitment to the church started, was when I was a little bit older, after I had been kind of a wild animal for a couple of years. But as soon as I had that process and truly felt that I had committed to God, that whole past feels like a totally different life. Like I feel so brand new and committed to the gospel. I put my mission papers in, got called to serve in South Korea, had the most incredible experience out there. Basically, my idea of a mission was it's just hard and it's just really brutal for 2 years, and you do it to show God you love him. And I think because that was my idea going into it, it was actually way more fun than I was expecting. Mm-hmm. So went on the mission, absolutely loved it, came home, and that ended that phase of my life.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, obviously brought tears to both of our eyes.
Yeah.
And I've heard this story before, but it's really such a sweet opportunity to be able to sit down and like talk about this from start to end, or start to where you're at now. So thanks so much for being willing to share, because I think that there are a lot of people who have experienced or are experiencing what you experienced growing up. And that feeling of being made new is what the gospel and the Savior offers us. And so it's just such a beautiful story of, it doesn't matter what your past has been like. It literally doesn't matter. If you have a sincere heart, literally what we've heard a million times, if you have a sincere heart and you want to change, if it's true, like God will speak to you. God loves you no matter where you're at on the path. And I think that is just such an incredible story. And I could just tell from Austin right when I very first met him that he was 100% in the gospel. It was so obvious to me, and that was what I was looking for in someone that I wanted to marry. I was like, I want someone who is 100%. And I could tell from Austin so early on that he was 100%. And I didn't really know what his I knew that he had kind of had some sort of a past, but it was never even, I didn't ever even think of it as concerning, because I could tell he was 100% in for the gospel. And I was like, I don't care. Like, you've repented, you've moved on, and you are a new person in Christ. So I don't know. I just love you. I love who you are as a person. I'm so grateful for the experiences that you've had that have brought you to where you're at, because Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about you is that you're just all in, 100% committed. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your mission. You are starting the mission kind of from a fresh place of commitment to God. Where did your faith kind of go throughout your mission? How did it develop throughout?
Okay, cool. Great question. So I think right off the bat, I just wanted to do the best that I could. We had I believe it was the MTC president at the time when I was first there, and he had us write down these questions. They might have been in Preach My Gospel, I can't remember. But one of the questions was, think forward to the last day of your mission. What do you want to say that you accomplished? What do you want to say that you've done? What do you want? So it was really this like, start with the beginning and with the end in mind. And I just thought about it. I was like, at the end of this mission, I just want to stand before God and say, I truly dedicated these 2 years to you. That was my purpose. My purpose is to find and teach people the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it was really, I think, good for me at that time to commit to something. So I committed to that. And during the 2 years, major ups and downs like anyone would experience over a 2-year period, especially when you're in a foreign country. So in Korea, speaking Korean, I have no idea what's going on. It's a completely different culture.
Korean is like the second hardest language to learn.
Yeah,
next
Korean,
to Hungarian, I
yeah,
think.
Finnish is really hard.
Okay.
There's certain things that are challenging about it. But for me to be there and try and understand and try and teach, I basically felt like I was totally out of the loop for the first 6 months. But when you're there, I just had this overwhelming love. And maybe this will be the theme. As I'm just sitting here thinking about it, I just had this overwhelming love for the people there. Like I remember once I was sitting on this bus, we're driving, and I just prayed. I said, Heavenly Father, please bless me to see these people with the kind of love that you see them with. And there's this old lady sitting there, and I felt overwhelmed with this love. And I think it was easy to feel that because it was a similar love that I'd felt when I wanted to commit to the gospel. When I wanted to commit to Jesus, I'd felt that love. And so the mission for me was not a 2-year experience of just trying to just baptize as many people as you can. It was a 2-year experience of, I'm going to try my best to know that God can put me in any situation, and I'm going to do what I think he wants me to do in that situation. Mixed with, I'm going to love these people, even though pretty much if you're a missionary in Korea, it's 8 hours a day of just walking on the streets, people putting their hand up in your face and saying, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I'm too busy. I'm whatever. So you don't really teach a lot, but you are out there and you have an opportunity all day to love these people. So yeah, for me, that was what it was. It was a mix of trying to improve myself and trying to do the best that I could. And I think one of the tools that I had on the mission is no matter what, I had scripture study time in the mornings. So at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours of just personal scripture study, maybe study with your companion. And because we weren't really preparing a lot for specific lessons we were going to teach, we kind of just got to study it however we wanted to for an hour. And that was incredible. I had so many amazing experiences with the scriptures that my testimony was just strengthened, because this was not for me a time to just sit there and read and just be like, okay, cool, I read my chapter, I'm done for the day. It was like, hey, I'm going to read until I feel like I've gotten something out of this. And I just got some incredible things out of the scriptures. And that was a huge testimony builder for me. There's another thing that comes to mind. This is just something in general that I think has been very helpful for me. When you're a missionary, you're going to run into people that disagree with you. And sometimes those people will bring things up to you that you don't have an answer for. Like I remember we ran into this preacher once, and he was an American guy, and you could tell he was there to do some proselyting as well. And he saw some Mormon missionaries, and he's like, I'm going to let these guys hear it all. So he just laid into it, goes through all these things. Me and my companion have no idea what's going on. And he brought up a lot of things that I had never heard of. I didn't know. And for a minute, I was like, okay, this is not true. This can't be true. And then you go back and you start looking and you're like, oh, some of this stuff is true. And what I learned from that experience was just because you hear something that you're unfamiliar with doesn't mean that there isn't a good answer for it. And that has just been one of the coolest things forever, is now I love when I run into something that I don't have an answer for, because I know that either through prayer and revelation or through reading the scriptures or for having good conversations and feeling the Spirit, I will have something that makes sense to me in that situation. So that's just something that I learned on my mission that I've carried on with me. Is it's actually totally awesome if you run into things that you don't have an answer for. I think maybe as kids we think, oh yeah, you grow up, you go on your mission, you come home, you get married in the temple, boom, like life's done. And then you realize, no, you might do those things, but like life is not done. There are still things that you're supposed to learn and grow. And so just knowing like questions come up, and that's an awesome opportunity to dig in deeper. And don't throw in the towel as soon as you're faced with some sort of controversy or some sort of question you can't answer. It's like, instead of quitting on it, just think, okay, I'm going to work on this and spend some time with it and pray about it. And for me, at least, I've always been able to get an answer to it. And it just continues to strengthen my testimony.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you might be listening to this, and if you've listened to past podcasts, you're thinking, that sounds a lot like kind of what Callie says and kind of the whole point of the podcast. And yes, this is something that Austin and I both care about so much, is that like there are explanations and there are reasons. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's kind of where I was thinking what I wanted to ask you about next was where this started for you. I started getting interested in it. It felt like you already knew a lot of the things that come up, a lot of the controversy, or just, I don't know, just different things that you can question in the church. And it was really nice for me because you already had a lot of knowledge about it once I started wanting to learn. So I'm just curious, like actually genuinely, I don't know if I know, where did that kind of come from for you when you started diving into all of
awesome.
the gospel?
Yeah, so like I said, when I was growing up, these kind of open conversations, almost debates, were pretty common in my family. So my dad loved to have these kind of conversations. You could talk about anything, ask any question, and then me and my siblings are all pretty vocal. And so we would kind of hash things out, mess with ideas, and see what made the most sense. So I think from the very beginning, I've always been interested in having conversations and having debates and really being interested in questions. And so after I kind of had different stages of my, faith journey, if you will, but it was like, okay, high school, did that. Went on a mission. I have a strong spiritual confirmation now that I do believe in God, that I believe that this is his church. And then it was after my mission where I wanted to know really why. I felt like I had the spiritual confirmation, and now I wanted to have like an intellectual confirmation, if you will. So I started with like the very basics, like very, very basics of like what's real, like reality. Looking at like philosophers, looking at all of the different ideas around just reality in general. And then I'm like, okay, so reality is real. Now, is there a God? And like, if there is a God, does he interact with people? There's so many different ideas out there on even just the topic of God. And I was like, hey, I do believe in God. And a lot of that too, like this was such a fun process for me because I was coming at it from a position of, I did hope that it was real. So I had a desire that this was the truth. So as I'm going and doing this research, like for example, one of my favorite things to do, and I would just watch hours and hours and hours of debates. I would watch and consume content from like all of the most famous atheists, like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, all of those guys. And then I would look at the counterpart, like the faithful part of like William Lane Craig, Stephen C. Meyer, and some of those high level thinkers from both sides. And what that gave me was this big confidence that even at like the highest level of these conversations, nobody knows for sure. Like the best atheists in the world, like the smartest atheists still have to have faith in the miracle of the Big Bang. It's like this famous saying of like, yeah, science like can prove everything if you allow it one miracle. They still don't know how that happened. So there were just so many big questions that these famous atheists couldn't answer that I feel like is answered better through the lens of believing in God. So I started very basic, and then I was like, okay, I believe in God. I believe that he interacts with the world. So now it's really the big three. It's like, okay, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. I'm like, out of those three, Christianity to me, obviously born and raised a Christian, but the whole story, the whole concept was just better than anything I'd found ever. And so, yeah, I had a love for studying, hearing people's thoughts, and really at a deep level, this is a quote that we use all the time, but like the truth fears no questions. So for me, I feel like I'm not as tied to this religion specifically just because I was born in it, but because I feel like this is where I found the most truth that resonates with me and my experience of anywhere I've ever looked. So I have a joy for learning these things. And then once you're like, hey, Christianity is my belief, now you have to start looking at, okay, all the different Christian denominations. There's Catholicism, Protestantism, like there's so many. And for me, the restoration of the gospel with the Book of Mormon, with a living prophet, matching the same structure that Jesus had when he was on the earth, that was another layer of belief that I had with this restored gospel. And then on top of that, I just stack in all of the different things that I had now continuous experiences while reading the scriptures. And that's that's really how I got into it, and how I'm still so into learning about the gospel and what's out there, and just loving it.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that was a really good like glimpse into who Austin is. Like just that answer is so like him. All of those different people that he reads and listens to, and like the learning and the desire to learn and diving all the way in. That is like what he does when he gets interested in a topic. He gets obsessed with it and like dives all the way down to like what is square one of this, and then building up, which makes it really fun because he's done that with a bunch of different things. So he can really have a conversation with anyone, which is really fun. And just a side note, my question for you, this is kind of just like kind of an on the spot question. So if you don't have an answer, that's okay. But what would be like your, I don't know, if someone's wanting to learn more about just faith in general and God, like, do you have a number one book or like YouTube channel or like something that you're like, has been one of your favorite things too?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I think my first answer is everybody's different.
Yeah.
So the number one thing is to just understand yourself and what you're looking for. Like for me, I wanted to go back to square one from like philosophy. Like, okay, what is, like for me, that had to make sense first. So I would just say like, what is your desire or what is your hope? Like I come back to that a lot when I'm thinking about something, or if things are tough or I'm struggling with something. I'm like, what is like the best story that this could be? And like, do I hope that that's real? And then if you do, like just follow that thread, like see what you're called to look into, see what you're called to research, or what video sticks out to you. And I would say like the number one thing is intention. Like if your intention is to have a spiritual experience, this has just been true for me. When I go out of my way to put myself in a situation where that's possible, I'm never let down. If I am faithfully like, oh, you know what, like I want to have a unique experience, then make it a unique thing. Like go by yourself, hike out into the mountain, or like do something that makes it special, and then follow that desire and pray openly. And if you ask God and say, hey, this is something I'm working on, this is something I want, like please guide me in the direction to go. And you're just quiet and you just sit there for a minute and see what answer comes to you. Again, like I said, everybody is different, but that's how I've always done it. And that's just proven to be a very reliable method for me. Yeah. Every time I read the scriptures, if I want to get the Spirit out of it, I will.
Yeah.
And if I ever feel like I'm not getting the Spirit from something, I can kind of sit there for a minute and think like, okay, what am I doing in my life that's making this a situation where I'm not feeling the Spirit? And it's like, oh yeah, like if you're not taking it seriously, don't expect that you're going to have this amazing. So I like, you have to know yourself. There are so many good resources out there. I would say if you're interested in learning anything, don't give up too soon is one of the biggest things. I think it's so common where if somebody runs into an issue, it's so easy to feel like everything crumbles in the moment. Where if you're just patient and you sit on it and you wrestle with that idea, it's going to sort itself out. Like the answers are out there. So if something freaks you out, just don't worry. Take a day off, just relax. Because in the moment, in the emotion, it can feel overwhelming. But then you just give it the time that it needs and work through it. Like things that bothered me immensely when I was 16, now I look back on and they're silly issues. because I've come so much further from that point. But in the moment, that's a big deal. It's not something to be laughed off. It was a big deal to me at the time. But now, as you continue to learn and progress, these answers just continue to come. So I would say never give up. Don't throw it all out. If you run into something that seems tricky, just don't throw it all out. Just be patient and just have that desire. Like, what do you hope for? And start studying there and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that answer. That made me think of something that we've been talking about recently. I think that I initially heard it on another podcast, but it was along the lines of ask God to speak to you. And it sounds so simple.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're praying, a lot of the time that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that God is going to speak to us, but we don't ask for it. Like, we don't say like speak to me today, like show me like what you want me to see. And I mean, it's not like I don't think I've ever heard like an audible voice, but it's crazy how when you look back, and even just I can look back at the last couple of weeks since that's been like a more constant prayer for me, and see like how God has aligned so many things in my life. And it's like, that's God speaking to you. So I think just along the lines of what you're saying of like, if you want to find something, if you're seeking something, like ask God to speak to you, ask God to show you. I think that sometimes we are hit with something that makes us uncomfortable or that we don't know a lot about, and our first thing isn't to pray. Like, our first thing is to feel doubt, and so we don't go to prayer. But it's like, have that hope and like ask God, you know. So anyway, that was just something that was on my mind as you were saying that.
I love it.
I have a couple other questions in mind for you. Is there anything else you kind of want to say, like maybe a where you're at now of your conversion story, just to like kind of wrap it up with that before we ask some other questions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think where I'm at now is major excitement around the gospel. I feel like, at least the way I look at it, during my lifetime, there have been some major cultural moments. I was born in 1996, so 1900s. And then you get into the 2000s, and it was like the four horsemen of the atheist movement. Like I mentioned, the Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, those guys, they came out and they made a huge splash in the world and in the culture, and they were just bashing Christianity, tearing down Christianity. And I think it shook a lot of people up. I was too young at that time to be affected by it, but I've gone back and researched their stuff since. And I feel like that was like a major cultural moment, and people didn't know how to handle it. And then the faithful people bounced back and made it even a more interesting conversation. And now Christianity is on the rise. And I think we've had a similar thing in our own church where 2013, 2014, you have all of this, whatever you want to call it, anti-Mormon, ex-Mormon content, like so many things started coming out, and it freaked out a lot of people. And there was a lot of things brought out that maybe the church or members weren't super comfortable dealing with. And now we've had some time, the faithful response has bounced back, and I feel like it's at such an exciting spot right now. So I'm just so excited about the gospel. I feel like we've had so much time now with these competing worldviews where you can really start to see where one falls short, and it leaves people with a hole in their heart that needs to be filled with something. And, if there's a God-sized hole in your heart, it'll be filled with something. And I think we have that comparison now. And so to have the resources like we have, to have these people that are going out and sharing their testimonies, and what I believe is truly just an incredible way to live your life. For me, it's like an exciting time. So more than anything, I'm just fired up about the gospel.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like maybe people listening to you and listening to that answer will kind of understand where I'm coming from in starting this page. I've just had such incredible support from you, and we're both so excited about the gospel. And I think that sometimes people see, especially with all of the backlash and stuff on Instagram, and they're like, what the heck, what are you doing putting yourself out there? But it's like, I have the best support right here, and like someone who is just as much, if not more, all in on the gospel and fired up about it as me. So I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, you've been so fun to see. You're just crushing it.
Okay, so a couple of just, I don't know, a couple of fun things that I wanted to ask you are that I think people might be interested in knowing about. I don't really want to go into like our whole dating, engaged, married story. I think that we could do
We'll
that
save
for
that for another day.
yeah, for a different podcast. But I think something that might be fun for anybody out there who is in like the dating phase, what is like your, would you say is your top piece of dating advice? And I did not prepare him for this, so if you need a second to think about
It's
it.
so cliche. No, my number one dating advice. Okay, two parts. I'm sure everybody has heard you want to be the person that you want to date. Some variation of that, where it's like if you want to date somebody that's strong in the gospel, active, fit, healthy, ambitious, like you go be that person. And I would just say, like, no matter what, like I've already mentioned, like eternal progression is one of the all-time best principles of the gospel. And so apply that to yourself. Like if you feel like you want to be, yeah, it's like instead of going out and just really trying to find somebody that just wants to marry you, maybe like look inward and say, who do I want to become? What kind of person do I want to be? And then pursue that with all of your energy. And as you're doing that, you will attract naturally. And I'm speaking to guys mostly because that's the world that I know.
Yeah.
But if you're a guy and you're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing in the dating world. I don't know what's going on. It's confusing, it's challenging, whatever. If you have a vision of yourself and who you can be, and you go after that with all the energy that you have, and you start to see progress, you'll get more confidence, and you start to really make an impact in the world, you are going to find somebody that's amazing. And so be patient with yourself. Don't get yourself down. Don't get down on yourself. Just know, like, hey, progress is an eternal principle, and I'm going to do the best that I can to be the best that I can. And you are going to attract somebody awesome.
Yeah, I love that. It's really so true. And it is like cliche, but it's just like work on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody wants to hear that when they're dating, but it's just true.
Yeah.
And even if you don't find someone to marry anytime soon, at least you're improving. Like you can't go wrong with that advice of like just trying to become better all the time. Okay, we're gonna do one more
Great.
advice
I love
one of obviously we're now married. So what would be your like number one marriage advice that you would give?
Number one marriage advice. Giving advice is so tricky because everyone's situation is different.
It's true.
I'm like,
true.
what worked for me
We're
is
just fun.
marry just the best person, and it's actually not that hard. That's my real advice: is make sure you pick the right person in the first place.
It's good advice, honestly.
Yeah, my number one marriage advice. I think that if you and your spouse can create a future vision together that you are both just fired up about, and you know what you're working towards, that can solve so many other problems. If you have a unified vision and you know you're there for your spouse no matter what, you're going to support them, encourage them, and that you feel that as well, you have that safety and security in your relationship, you can accomplish anything. So, number one marriage advice is spend that time with your spouse, go somewhere special, figure out what you guys want your life to look like. Like, what does it look like? What does success look like in 5, 10, 20? What do we want this life to look like? And then just start building the life that makes that come true. That's my advice.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. And yeah, that is something we love doing. We love goal setting and all of that style of things. And it has been very helpful through our marriage. So yeah, that's great advice. Okay, we're kind of just going to hit all the different aspects, just kind of a question on every aspect of life proceeding on. So next one about being a dad. I kind of just want to ask you, how is it? How do you like it?
There is nothing like it in the world. Man. It is like both parts completely humbling and encouraging. You just feel fired up. You're like, I have this incredible child, this gift from God that has been given and he's trusted to us as parents. And I get to just, like, we have a daughter. And so to have this little girl, it feels like a cheat code. For me, it is like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So there's that aspect to it as well. And then as far as being a dad, I feel like what it gives you is a big sense of responsibility. Like nothing could have fired me up, or nothing could have motivated me to improve and be the person that I've always wanted to be, more than being this little girl's dad. You know, like you want her to see you as this superhero. You want her to be inspired by you and to know that she's loved. And so all of that comes with it. Then again, it gives you a big understanding of how God feels towards us. Like if we have a perfectly loving Heavenly Father who knows us perfectly, sent us to this earth to learn and grow and gain experience, that love and that understanding and compassion that you feel as a dad towards your own kid, God has a perfect embodiment of that exact love. So I don't know. It makes me feel like even more grateful for the plan of salvation and for just life in general. Everything just feels incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that all the time, about all of the analogies that you see once you're a parent, especially to like a toddler. You start to understand just like simple ways that you're like, wow, this is totally like how God sees us. Like little things of like, she is so independent right now, of like, if she is climbing on something, not only can you not touch her to like make sure she's not going to fall, you cannot have your hand near her, like in sight. She will literally smack it away. And we just look at it all the time and we're like, this is so funny. This is totally how we are with God. It's like, we've got like, you know, at times we've got to leave us alone type of thing. And it's like, I can see this situation from a bigger view. You don't have depth perception. You're going to step off the ledge. I have to be here for you to catch you. So anyway, that is a really big blessing of becoming parents, is having a little bit more of an understanding
100%.
of God's love for us.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so now question along business lines. Maybe just give a brief explanation of what you do.
Yeah.
Just before I ask.
Yeah. So I own a marketing company. We work specifically with e-commerce businesses. So our job is just to come in, be a partner to these business owners and help them scale their companies. So me and my business partner, who's one of my best friends, I actually met him in the MTC, and then we served our missions together. We started this company a little bit over a year ago, and we have been just having a blast with it. It's kind of like our dream. We're both kind of that style where we love to learn about new businesses, and we could probably try and start a new business together every month, but that's not a great strategy. So instead, we just partner with new companies all the time. So we get to help them grow, we get to help them scale, we run their marketing and kind of work as a partner.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so my question along those lines, if there is anyone who's interested in kind of like business and maybe even self-development in general, what would be your number one book that you would recommend? We both love books.
Yeah, I love books. So one of my favorite quotes of all time about business, and this question specifically, is from Tim Ferriss. And he said that having a business is a self-development machine disguised as a money-making machine. So I would say be prepared if you want to get into this road. It is just nonstop. There is something that comes up that you don't know how to handle, and now you have to figure it out. Like that's what it is. It's all problem solving and critical thinking and uncertainty. So again, it's like my advice from earlier is just to know yourself. Know what things get you excited. Like for me, I enjoy the uncertainty. I enjoy the risk. I enjoy the gamble of, hey, let's start this company and see what we can do. Okay, so the book was your question.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do have to name a book this
I have to
time.
name a book. Man, what is a good book? Okay, easiest book ever. Anyone can read it. Peter Drucker, Managing Oneself. Just get that book, because it is like a pamphlet. And yeah, Peter Drucker, Managing Oneself. It is like a little pamphlet, and that'll give you a great starting point.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
I think that we're probably good to wrap up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is so
has
fun.
Been so fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being willing to share your story. It's not easy to share very personal things publicly. So I appreciate you being willing to do this. And like I mentioned, being so supportive towards me in this endeavor. Is there any kind of just give you like a last thought?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of thoughts just sitting here. One, I just want to say that none of this was scripted or planned out. I didn't know the questions beforehand. So if I said something that was confusing at all, I would love to clarify it if it doesn't make sense.
I thought you sounded great.
Oh, yeah. And I know that sometimes if you're in a position where you're exploring or dealing with some of these struggles, if you hear somebody say something that seems oversimplified, it's easy to be like, oh my gosh, like this person has no idea. And so I want to just speak to anybody that is struggling and just say, it is okay. Like, it is okay to struggle. It is okay to be in a wrestle with God. Like, don't quit on it. Keep pushing forward. Try and just keep working towards it. It's like, at the end of the day, I do believe that we have a God that knows us perfectly, loves us, created this plan for us, and is there for us. And if you operate with that frame and that overarching narrative, everything else kind of can make sense. And the answers are out there. So don't quit on it. Keep studying, keep working, praying, and God is not going to leave you alone. So I would just like to say that. Anything else? I think that does it.
No, I love that. And that's another thing that we say a lot just to each other in these conversations is the word Israel, right? God calls his people Israel. And Israel literally means we who wrestle with God. And so I think that that's just such a great last point to make. I think a lot of the time as members of the church, we feel like we should have made it by now. Like you said at the beginning, like we've checked all the boxes. We went on a mission. We got married in the temple. We all these things. And so like, then when something comes up, you're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I struggling with this? And that is okay. God is in the wrestle. God calls his people the ones who wrestle with him. So it's like, stay in the wrestle. Don't give up on that. Stay in it and know that like God's okay with that. God doesn't feel like you are falling short because you have questions and you are struggling through something. You are struggling through a concept. So hopefully this podcast can kind of help you through that. That's kind of the whole goal, is to hopefully try to add some context to some of these harder problems in the church. But yeah, overall, we love the church. As you can probably tell, we love the gospel, and I'm so grateful to have you to go through this life with.
Oh, you too. That was very, very beautifully said.
Oh, thanks.
You said it better than I could have.
Whatever. So once again, like always, I am so grateful to you for being here. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe and send us a DM, send us a comment with your thoughts or any questions that you have. I love to hear from you. Love to hear where you want to see this podcast go, what topics are important to you, or what you have seen maybe a family member or a loved one struggle with. So never be afraid to reach out, and thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you later.